back to Alchemical Astrology. I'm your stellar sextant, Melusine, with the December Transit Report. Before we delve into details of the last month in 2022, I have some good news to relay at the very outset. Number one, I won't be talking about the Saturn-Uranus square because they are finally separating, and I'm sure you're already feeling the stranglehold easing off in this Sagittarius season. Number two, the perpetual pounding of the fixed signs by way of eclipse axis points is shifting gears and will firmly land in the Aries Libra playground as of April of 2023. So all you Scorpios, Taurians, Leos, and Aquarians can step out of your bunkers and breathe the fresh air as the emphasis is moving away from fixed energies to cardinal. Those of us who make a point of diligently following the wheels in the sky are aware that there are bigger, slow-moving wheels delineated by the outer planets and smaller, fast-moving wheels we track by way of the personal planets. Where they are in relation to each other and the ecliptic is our baseline of comparison. Repetitions are noted and events on a mundane level are tabulated for the purposes of identifying patterns and learning from them, so we don't repeat mistakes, or at least we make educated choices, not reactive ones, on a personal level, as the element of free will is always a factor in personal astrology. In other words, there is the collective energy and there is the individuation of every soul's experience. The two are not interchangeable, and this distinction must be recognized. This is why I offer you in every transit report an overall measure of mundane probabilities and then narrow the scope with individual rising sign relevance. Even that heightened focus will not adequately account for unique moment-by-moment perceptions of reality, but we can compare notes and share what we have learned to pool this into a library of references that hopefully assists in reducing suffering and confusion. Keeping this objective in mind, let's do a brief recap of where we left off end of November, and from there, I'll summarize the most significant celestial events to be considered as 2022 comes to a close. As you may recall, we had a tense T-square between Mercury and Venus in Sag, directly opposing Mars in Gemini and squaring Neptune in Pisces. This dynamic continues to bleed into the first week of December, as you can see in this chart, for the first of the month. The dominant energy flow is now mutable in tone, as there are 7 planets in 3 of the 4 mutable signs, namely Pisces, Gemini, and Sagittarius. It is also important to note that Venus was leading the movement in this direction, but was overtaken in November by Mercury, who is now fully in the lead as he ingresses into Capricorn on December 6th, just before the full moon in Gemini on the next day. I will, of course, have a separate recording for the full and new moon presentations this month. This sequential movement of planetary ingresses bears further consideration as well. We had the planet of love and money moving through the underworld, beckoning us to dive into our woundings in relationships on all levels. Immediately following Venus dropping out of sight, the planet of communication and commerce, Mercury, took the plunge behind the sun last month, affecting cryptocurrency and social media in very visible ways. Venus led us into Sagittarius, followed immediately by Mercury, and then the Sun. In December, the order switches, and Mercury is the planet to initiate movement from the mutable fire sign Sagittarius to the cardinal earth sign of Capricorn. You could say the heart was first in the celestial marching order last month, and now the head takes charge through the winter solstice and into the new year. If we are to understand the implications of this jockeying of positions, it would be helpful to examine the 4 mental temperaments of Mercury. Both Mercury and Venus are closer to the Sun than the Earth. That is to say, they never enter a geocentric opposition with the Sun. During each cycle, they produce an inferior and superior conjunction. Here is a chart to illustrate my point. Mercury takes approximately 116 days to orbit around the Sun, beginning with the inferior conjunction when it's midway through a retrograde. This is referred to as the waxing hemicycle and is compared to the new to full moon phases. Dane Rudyard, a brilliant astrologer of the early 20th century, termed this initial cycle of Mercury Promethean, after the Titan who defied the gods and gave the gift of fire to humanity. This is the morning star Mercury the Greeks called Apollo. In this presentation, Mercury spends 10 to 15 days retrograding. That is the Promethean retrograde and is only seen in 1 out of 10 birth charts. Aldous Huxley, who wrote Brave New World, falls into this category and gives you a general sense of personality for an individual born with this expression of Mercury. A week after the inferior conjunction, Mercury reaches its point furthest from the Sun, speeds up, and lands behind the Sun at its superior conjunction, which we experienced last month. This is analogous to the full moon and triggers the waning hemicycle Rudyard called the epimethean. This is an entirely different flavor to the instinctive, rebellious, waxing phase of Mercury. Evening star Mercury, called Hermes by the Greeks, bears the mark of the spiritual leaders such as Krishnamurti and George Gurdjieff. This Mercury relies less on gut feelings and more on objective, evolutionary principles. Lessons have been learned and applied to the processing of information. The fourth and final temperament of Mercury is the most introspective as Mercury retrogrades in its epimethean hemicycle. The Sun and Mercury are moving towards each other from opposite directions. Think of Benjamin Franklin and Salvador Dali to get a picture of this category of mercurial manifestation. As it stands, in the present moment, we have Mercury leading the pack as the epimethean direct manifestation. No matter what face of Mercury you came into the world wearing, the overall message here, when it comes to your thinking processes now, is to aim for objective, analytical, experience-based reflection in true Virgo fashion, a sign ruled by Mercury, especially in the first week of December, and I'll show you why. For an overview of the planetary movements, here's a graphic depiction of the ingresses we are about to encounter. The only planets remaining retrograde until the end of the month are Mars and Uranus. That's a very different playing field compared to what we've been pushing through over the last 2 years. And it gives you a hint that 2023 will facilitate movement forward in many ways. On December 2nd, I am happy to report Venus returned to the skies as Aphrodite, the evening star, bringing the potential for diplomacy and harmonic connection back to the collective, as it is sorely needed, with Mars still aiming for more roadkill while retrograding in Gemini until January 12, 2023. I'm recording this report when Venus emerges as evening star to maximize on the benefits she restores to our reality in the traditions of a true alchemist. I will break down where Venus rises in each of the zodiac signs as part of this report. As I mentioned earlier, what we need to remember right through to the full moon in Gemini is the T-square in the mutable signs still applies, and this tension is relieved by activating Virgo energy in our thinking patterns. This is doubly important due to the fact that Venus is squaring Neptune, which goes direct the day after she returns to the night sky. This is a hard aspect that can conjure up feelings of low self-esteem based on a distorted perception of one's self-image. It would also be advisable to approach romantic opportunities with that mercurial discernment to avoid unrealistic expectations in love. The Sun is trining Chiron in Aries on the same day, shining light on where we've been wounded regarding our identities, so we can heal this fragmentation before stepping into the new year. On December 6th, Mercury ingresses into the sign of Capricorn, heightening even further that sober, practical approach to our daily lives and armoring us for the full moon on December 7th in Gemini, conjuncting Mars to the exact degree. This reminds me of those moments in highly publicized international chess matches when a losing competitor has a public temper tantrum. We need to be aware that on December 1st, Mars is at its closest proximity to Earth as it opposes the Sun, and will culminate in the night sky after midnight, where it can be seen between the horns of the bull close to the fixed star Aldebaran, the fiery eye of the bull. According to Vivian Robson, Aldebaran with Mars signifies great military preferment but attended by much danger. Given that Gemini rules the shoulders and arms, be extra cautious around possible accidents involving your upper body. The pot gets stirred even more when a retrograding Mars is occulted by the Moon in its full power on December 7th. That is to say, the energy of Mars is cut off from Earth for nearly an hour despite its brightness and proximity. This occultation can be seen from most of North America, northern Mexico, Europe, and North Africa, as is demonstrated in this diagram. So just at the point when Mars is at its brightest and closest, the Moon unplugs its antagonistic fan flaming. The Moon represents the people and our collective emotional barometer. This would lead me to speculate that some efforts to provoke and divide us will be exposed for humanity to process, integrate, and hopefully achieve an understanding that impulsive reactionary behavior is harmful. This celestial event will be particularly resonant in the US, as the full moon is activating the nation's natal Mars as well. Consider also the fact that this falls in America's second house of finances, opposing both benefics, so this country is likely going to experience serious financial setbacks in the near future. On December 9th, Venus follows Mercury into Capricorn, having the planets representing the head and the heart traveling into the sign that had the traffic jam in 2020 will echo the energies triggered then by both malefics in the same sign with Pluto. This was a massive paradigm shift we are still recovering from, but that is the power Pluto wields when it's in a sign. The last time Pluto was in Capricorn was between 1762 and 1778, which saw the demise of Louis XVI, Marie Antoinette, and King George III. You had the American Revolution, resulting in the Declaration of Independence in 1776. The U.S. is currently experiencing a Pluto return, and you can bet there will be another such reconfiguration because that's what Pluto does in Capricorn. It shifts the balance of power by dismantling old structures and systems. It has been doing so since 2008 and won't be finished until it moves definitively into Aquarius in 2024. As Mercury and Venus march their way towards Pluto this month, we have another echo coming from Jupiter on the 20th, when he ingresses back into Aries. He made a brief visit in May of this year, if you recall. But this time around, he will be in the sign of the Ram until May 16th of 2023. This is the initiation of a new cycle through the entire zodiac for the greater benefic, and as such bears further consideration. I will convey the impact on all 12 rising signs as soon as I have wrapped up this monthly summary. The solstice on the 21st marks the first day of winter and the longest night of the year before the light gradually overtakes the darkness. The sun ingresses into Capricorn and immediately makes a square to Jupiter. Be sure to rein in your impulse buying and spending beyond your means. Although it's holiday season, it would be a good idea to curb your appetite before overindulgence creates harsh consequences. This angle can also lead to a crash and burn if you fall prey to your compulsions. Venus is trining Uranus at the same time, and this could lead to a desire to explore uncharted territory in your love life. Pleasure and pain swing from the same stick, and finding balance between them will spare you a great deal of suffering and unnecessary hardship. On the 23rd, we have a new moon in the first decan of Capricorn, and there are no hard aspects to this lunation, but there will be 5 planets in Capricorn. Chiron is stationing direct on the same day. Anyone with Chiron in a cardinal sign at 13 degrees will feel this on a personal level. This may present in a physical way, and you would do well to add a good amount of self-care to your calendar into the new year until Chiron leaves Aries in February of 2024. Come the 29th of December, we get another jockeying of position with Mercury stationing retrograde and Venus overtaking the lead to sprint right into the arms of the Lord of the Underworld. The year's fourth and final Mercury retrograde in Capricorn can bring you some financial and/or career setbacks, or at least re-evaluations. All the more reason to be prudent with your spending until Mercury goes direct on January 19th. When it comes to matters of the heart, well, Venus conjunct Pluto points towards obsession, so don't let your need for deep connection lead you into unhealthy, manipulative maneuvers. That retrograding Mercury can be used to your advantage to boost your capacity to see beyond your woundings and approach a potential love interest with respect and courtesy. Now, if you're still watching and not 3 sheets into the wind, here are the rising sign breakdowns for the Venus evening star and Jupiter and Aries presentations in the sky. Aries Rising. Venus in her Aphrodite form is birthed in your 9th house, which may inspire you to pursue your education or teach a course, and that in turn could result in the opportunity to travel or meet people from foreign lands. Jupiter stations in your 1st house of body and self-image. Any stress could manifest as a headache or eye problems since Aries rules the cranium. Be careful not to fall into depression after partying your way into 2023. Jupiter rules the liver and circulatory system, so approach the holidays with moderation as a key word. Consider also that Jupiter will be moving towards Chiron, and you may be afforded an insight into healing some old traumas with a greater benefic assisting directly. Taurus Rising. The evening star shines in your 8th house of intimacy and other people's money. For some of you, this could be made manifest as a pregnancy. For others, it could be a buried sexual trauma that surfaces to be healed. As Venus also represents money, in this house, your partner might be the one who is awarded a raise. Jupiter finds his way into your 12th house of spirituality and the subconscious. The message here is to dream big after you've cleaned out the skeletons in your closet that may have been rattling in old thought patterns that are ready to be released in this Gemini full moon. You may have an epiphany or some inspiration that strengthens your faith in the unseen. Gemini Rising. The goddess of love appears in your 7th house of relationships. Get ready for some good loving. Need I say more? Jupiter is making his presence known in your 11th house of associations and community. Take this time to network and put yourself out there, as your offerings will be received with appreciation. You can make your mark one-on-one and in a group dynamic this month if you align yourself with like-minded individuals in an organization that embraces your value system. Cancer Rising. Venus is visible in your 6th house of service and the workplace. Opportunities may present at your job through business associates or work referrals. You may find yourself contemplating the adoption of a pet to give and receive some unconditional love. This is also the placement that points to daily routine, so the ingress into Capricorn by both Venus and Mercury could work in your favor if you take a moment to calculate a good use of your time and energy in a workday. Jupiter is starting a new cycle in your 10th house of career. You find the courage now to approach the boss for that raise you've been wanting to discuss. Praises and pats on the back are in your forecast this month. Leo Rising. The radiance of Aphrodite rises in your 5th house of self-expression, romance, and recreation. If ever you have a reason to give yourself permission to play, this is it. The holiday season will be a source of inspiration and a time to just let your hair down and find the joy in just being you. This is also the house of children, so make sure to include them in the merriment if you have any. Just don't make any firm New Year's resolutions until Mercury goes direct mid-January. Meantime, Jupiter is showering you with blessings in your 9th house. Expand your horizons and plan your vacation to a far-off destination. Your focus may also find its way to a library or a place of higher learning during your time off, or you may decide to take a sabbatical to pursue a line of inquiry you've never made time for in the past. Virgo Rising. Venus appears in your 4th house of home and family. You may opt out of celebrating the year-end in a public place and may choose instead to bring in 2023 with your loved ones in the comfort of your own home, with some champagne and a crackling fire to keep you cozy. This may be the time you discuss investing some money into renovation or upgrades to your property. Jupiter expands everything he touches, so you may find you have an inheritance coming your way. The 8th house is also the realm of taxes, so make sure to get all your finances in order for your year-end tallies. Libra Rising. The sign of the scales will be blessed with a visit from Venus in the 3rd house of communications and siblings. Your silver tongue will charm everyone as the year winds down and you play the social butterfly, being the life of the party wherever you touch down. Soak in the popularity and goodwill, as harmony is your middle name and Venus rules your sign. Jupiter further sweetens the pot, being in your 7th house of relationship, so feel all the good feels in the arms of your partner. You deserve the attention, having worked extra hard this year, bringing diplomacy and grace into every space you occupy. Scorpio Rising. As one of the fixed signs hit hardest by the eclipse season, you'll be more than relieved to know Venus is appearing in your 2nd house of resources and finances. You can finally lift your nose from the grindstone and take a moment to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Have a drink on me. You have earned it. Jupiter showers you with more good vibes in your 6th house of work and daily routine. There are payoffs here too, as your efforts have been noticed by colleagues and higher-ups. Sagittarius Rising. The optimist at heart is going to feel even more positive about themselves with Venus shining in your 1st house of identity. Time to do a little swaggering as you turn heads this holiday season, and folks will want a piece of that action for themselves. Positive vibes are just as contagious as the opposite kind, and spreading good cheer is what you excel at on any given day. Jupiter gives you a boost in your 5th house of hobbies and potential liaisons. There's no stopping this fire sign in December. Capricorn Rising. The month of December brings the water goat's Venus to the placement of Pisces, that is the 12th house. The final sign of the zodiac is playing out a completion cycle for you. Any crisis of faith or hurts unspoken will be cleansed through Venus's good graces, and you will finally be able to move on with a lighter heart in 2023. Jupiter brings joy and wealth into your home, making the cardinal earth sign feel secure on all fronts into the new year. Aquarius Rising. Aphrodite finds expression in your 11th house of assets and associations. Pool your resources and come up with creative ways to grow your wealth and your connections. Jupiter spreads joy into your 3rd house of communication and siblings. The family could be expanding with some new arrivals that make you an aunt or an uncle. And share that love by way of the written or spoken word and see how it multiplies tenfold as it returns to you. Pisces Rising. The evening star presents in your 10th house of career, so use that juice to realize your ambitions and score points with your boss. Some accolades and appreciation for your contributions to the profession you've embraced will be made manifest as an award, and your reputation is heightened. Jupiter in your 2nd house of resources and finances may translate this appreciation into currency. What a great way to wrap up a very challenging year on all fronts. Until we meet again in 2023, happy holidays.